Good afternoon. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It is Monday, March 9th, 2026, just after 1 o'clock, and we are going to hear some bills this afternoon. And the first one is H 632 related to miscellaneous environmental amendments. And we have Mike O'Grady from Ledge Council with us, and online on Zoom is Ted Barnett from the Joint Fiscal Office, People's Fiscal Note. So we'll hand it over to you.
Good afternoon. This is Mike O'Grady with legislative council. How would you like me to proceed? You want to walk through the entire bill? I also gave a section by section that I can walk through.
Why don't we start with the section by section?
Okay, sounds good.
That seems like a do it.
So there's section 1. It relates to the battery extended producer responsibility program. There's a report back currently from A&R about how to deal with difficult to recycle or manage batteries, like your car battery, like an electric vehicle battery. The product stewardship organization that runs that EPR program, they volunteered to do that report, but they want an extra year in which to do it. And that's what section 1 does. It switches the report responsibility from A&R to the product stewardship organization and gives them another year to do that report. Section 2.
Wayne, just a question of what's that organization, who's on it? What's the help?
It's made up of battery manufacturers, those who are responsible for paying for that program. They hire and basically a manager to manage the program. And so that's basically
Best technical, so they definitely get the best technical knowledge.
Yeah. Section 2 relates to underground storage tanks, category 1 tanks, which are basically fuel tanks, motor fuel tanks. A&R wants to change the inspection standards slightly, so it's easier for them to regulatorily inspect, and that's basically what it does. Section 3 does have an appropriations connection. You appropriated money from ARPA for something called the Healthy Homes Initiative, which provided low and moderate income assistance to those people who wanted to put in wastewater or stormwater system, drinking water systems, etc. The federal law requires the applicant information to be confidential. And it's not clear from what was enacted by the state that it was confidential. And so section 3 clearly provides that personal information provided by applicants is confidential.
So there's no money involved. There won't be appropriated it, but it's just about clarifying it needs to be kept confidential, right?
So how do we get around the freedom of information?
It's at the federal level under FOIA, it's already exempt and supposed to be exempt. In the state, that's what you're doing here. Under the State Public Records Act, you're making that information confidential and exempt from the Public Records Act. Yeah. Sections 4 through 7 relate to the flood safety bill that you enacted in 2024. That program had multiple aspects of it, some of which were permitting deadlines, most specifically for the River Corridor Protection Program, requiring development in river corridors to be permitted. This pushes those dates out, pretty much all of those dates out, by a year to a little bit more than a year. So you're not going to get the permit fee revenue from that until an extra year. They haven't even set the permit fees yet, so you don't know what you would be losing, but there won't be permit revenue for an additional year.
And I'm noticing, I think a typo under the section 6 extends from August 15th, 2026 to August 15th, 2026.
Yes, that is.
Should that be 27?
Yes.
So this
No,
is.
it's August 2025, to August 2026.
Oh, okay. So this is essentially lost revenue.
Yeah,
We haven't set the permit fees yet.
right. I believe Ted addresses that in the fiscal note.
Oh, okay, we'll get to that then.
It's not anticipated that the fees will be great, large, right?
Pardon me?
You anticipate big fees or relatively small fees?
I can't even predict. I mean, the type of A&R fees can run from relatively nothing to $2,500. Now, can be significant.
Depends how much work will be.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's 4 through 7.
Sections 8 and 9 relate to the clean water service providers. Those are the entities that are responsible for a watershed and doing non-regulatory projects in the watershed. So if you are regulatorily required something, you're a farmer, you're a discharger, that is something that's covered by A&R. The clean water service provider tries to find those projects that no one's regulatorily required to do to fix them, like armoring a stream bank or stabilizing a stream bank, replacing a culvert, things of that nature. What this relates to is the notice that is required when the secretary approves a project or categories of projects or approves basically the priorities for each watershed. The notice requirements currently are different, and A&R wants them to be the same. So those sections doesn't change anything substantively besides just making the notice requirements the same when they have to go out to notice. Sections 10 to 15, last year, after EPA, effectively a warning letter to A&R and the Agency of Ag said, you need to start regulating concentrated animal feeding operations farms more appropriately underneath your delegated Federal Clean Water Act authority. You made multiple amendments to state statute to do what EPA wanted. EPA followed up with some additional tweaks that they wanted. Some of them are really, I won't say petty, but like that, not
Pretty minor.
pretty minor. But one of the things that they request, what the A&R and the Agency of Ag is requesting, is to move the date for the concentrated animal feeding operation permit back by over a year. And that,
Push it out further.
yes. They've been going through a public process with farmers and advocates and other stakeholders. And that permit was supposed to be issued on December 15, 2025.
Right.
But it wasn't. And they are asking to push that date out to September 1st, 2027.
Who's asking for that?
Both A&R and the Agency of Agriculture.
So we gave them a lot of money for this last year.
Gave them positions, yes.
Did they hire people for that, or are they still open positions?
I believe they've hired people. The delay is not the staffing. The delay is actually getting through this public participation process, which was required last year.
Okay.
It's just taking them much longer than expected.
It's all administrative, the notices and setting up the meetings and all that.
And trying to find consensus about how to do this regulation. It's not an easy subject matter, and there are people that are they're resistant. They're resistant to change and resistant to some of the things that they would have to do.
Go ahead.
Who is resistant? The people who would have to, not the administration people or the people who
I think it's
overseen?
I think it's a mix of that. I think it's a mix of that.
Well, that's important I mean, I guess we'll have to ask the committee. I think that would be the right question to ask for the committee, because if it's the administration not executing the wishes of the General Assembly, then and for reasons that would be one thing. If they were reluctant to crack the whip because they didn't really agree with it and they just assumed push it out till 27, that's a whole other question.
No, I don't think it's really either of those. I think this is a difficult topic. You're talking about how people run their farms, how they're going to be regulated. They're very invested in that. The two agencies are very invested in what they're supposed to do under statute. And they also want to support farming. And so it's just a sensitive, difficult topic, and it's taking longer than expected.
Trevor, and then Wayne.
Yeah, just to follow up Mike's point to you, Tom, it's how it's being manifested is tension between two agencies that are part of the administration. It's agency of ag and AR. So that's really what it comes to. Me, a lot of it comes down to that.
Turf, literally.
Although they've been, so go ahead, Wayne, and then I'll ask.
So there's also lost revenue here. The fees for this program have been set already. For a medium concentrated animal feeding operations, it's $1,500 a year. For a large, it's $2,500 a year. So you wouldn't.
Are those the fees that they want us to remove?
That's a
different one.
That's the other program.
Okay,
This is the A&R program.
Okay.
The fees that they want to remove are those in that's the Agency of Ag, LFO, MFO.
so are these fees that it's lost revenue because we haven't completed the conversion yet, or because they're not going to charge these fees?
Having completed the conversion.
Okay.
And part of what needs to be done is A&R needs to go out and determine what farms need this federal permit and what farms don't need the federal permit. Because under federal law, you only need the federal permit if you have an actual discharge. So the agency needs to determine if there's an actual discharge.
I guess question.
There hasn't been any, I'm just getting to the other pushback from the industry, of course, but then it hasn't industry had an opportunity to know anything about this yet, such that they could get some pushback.
They are very involved.
So
And from the last recount I received is that they are now working directly with the advocates, with the agencies to the side to try and get to consensus between the industry and the advocates without them.
it's more complicated than just two agencies pushing against each other.
It's three-dimensional. So I'm assuming that the cow-calf thing is one of those minor differences that we had to clarify,
Yes.
for example.
So the slash, when you
Yeah.
say cow/calf, courts interpret that to mean an or. It's the proper term for that is a virgule, virgule.
Cool.
So a virgule means cow or calf, but technically what they want is cow and calf. And so you replace the virgule with an and that's fixes it.
I'm glad to know that.
Madam Speaker, the second syllable is spelled GHOUL. That would be a Vermont zombie.
Yes. Okay. You can tell it's our first day back.
Section 16 relates to the dam permitting program. Whenever you need to build a dam, remove a dam, repair a dam, breach the dam, you have to go to A&R and there's basically a certificate of public good process. One of the things that the advocates are looking for is that a person who's applying for this permit should be notified when removal of the dam is an option. And so that is what section 16 does. When removal is an appropriate alternative, the agency is directed to notify the permit applicant of that.
And so that sort of ties in with the dam safety bill that you were in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Section 17 and 18 relate to emergency rulemaking. I think several of you have served on LCAR. There is a process for adopting rules. It generally takes 5 to 8 months, but sometimes you need to do it faster when there's an emergency. And that's usually when there's going to be something that's an imminent risk to public health or the environment or safety. But there's one other way right now where you can go to emergency rulemaking. It's when your program is based on the federal government and they issue the requirement late in the game and you can't actually comply with state rulemaking. And the example of that is what used to be the Migratory Bird Treaty Rule, because the federal government would they issue how many birds can be taken during hunting season, but they would not issue it until, say, like August. And hunting season, September, October, you couldn't get to rulemaking. So what you did is you kind of circumvented that, and you said that when that type of thing happens, an agency can go to emergency rulemaking. Emergency rulemaking is only valid for a short period of time. And then the agency has the ability to adopt a permanent rule. This adds a third category of emergency rulemaking. It's kind of the reverse of what that migratory bird rule situation is. It's when the state program, the state rules are based on cross-references to federal programs and federal rules. Your state air pollution control regs have about 70 cross-references in it. The public drinking water rules have 30 or 40 cross-references in it. Your Medicaid rules have cross-references in it. The concern is that with the federal government, after the Chevron decision, does everybody know what the Chevron decision was? So for decades, federal courts were directed to provide public agencies with deference when the public agency was interpreting an ambiguous language in a statute. So the agencies could go to rulemaking, say this is an ambiguous term, we're defining what that term is, we're defining what the standard is, and the courts were required to give deference to that agency interpretation. Well, the Supreme Court about 2 years ago now said, no more deference. It's up to the courts to decide what the language means. And subsequently, the Trump administration issued an executive order directing all public agencies to repeal any rule that relied on Chevron and other standards that the Supreme Court had changed for rulemaking. Well, that puts a lot of doubt and a lot of anxiety into state programs that are based on cross-references to rules. So they don't know what the federal public agencies are going to repeal and when they are going to repeal those rules. And if they did repeal those rules, the state programs would basically fall apart because the requirements that are cross-referenced would no longer be valid. What this does is it allows the agencies to go to emergency rulemaking to effectively keep what is in their rule, those cross-references, until they have time to adopt a permanent rule to make those cross-references permanent in rule.
Yes.
Does this require any change in Vermont's APA?
It does amend the APA.
This is that, it can do that, okay. This is amending the APA.
It's amending the APA to provide a third emergency rulemaking alternative. It's only going to be in effect until July 1, 2028. And at that point, there's a sunset built in. You could repeal the sunset at that time if you thought it was worthwhile, or maybe by that time, the federal public agencies will have repealed all the rules that they were directed to repeal, and the state agencies have amended their rules to no longer need this emergency rulemaking authority. But that's why it's there to ensure that these state programs that are based on federal law and federal cross references don't fall apart if the feds repeal rules.
What's the APA?
Administrative Procedures Act.
Ah, okay. Sounds like a guy's been on alcohol.
Functionally, there should be no problem doing what needs to be done.
I mean, honestly, it's a timing issue because if the feds start repealing rules now, I think you don't have this in place. So you could see issues. If the feds start repealing the rules after you enact this, I think you have a safety net. And then they have their opportunity to go to permanent rule without the program falling apart.
That's what you need to do.
Okay.
Yeah, just to respond back to your comment, I mean, LCAR, which I chair, there's certainly been circumstances where emergency rulemaking has come to us, and we start to scratch our head a little bit. But there's been generally a good reason why, even though it didn't quite fit that construct. So even if something was to happen prior to something being changed here, I can see the committee taking it under consideration.
Right, you could make a case that there was an imminent threat or imminent emergency. But I've also seen LCAR say, no, this isn't imminent.
See, that's one where this would be, do you anticipate a big load going on to these guys?
I don't, again, that's a timing issue. It all relates to when the feds start repealing these rules. And if they do it in a coordinated way where they all repeal them at the same time, or if they do it in a way where it's staged. So I can't predict what the workload would be. And it would all the environmental ones will come through me. This isn't just an environmental authority. This is for all state agencies.
Okay. Oh,
The notion of struck by the, cut off the head and all of the little pieces, the crop reference, everything just sort of comes down. Is this has this thing been challenged, like many of the other orders? I mean, because of the chaos that it can create?
So the aspect of the order that's being challenged is the president directed that they do the repeal under what's effectively called a good cause provision, where the federal agency doesn't need to go through the Federal Administrative Procedure Act to repeal the rule because they have good cause. And there's challenges to whether or not these rules meet that standard or whether they need to go through full APA rulemaking, because full federal rulemaking can take a long time. And there's often challenges, but if you go to the good cause exception, you accelerate that repeal and you remove opportunities for challenge, you remove public comment and participation, and that's what's being challenged.
And with a challenge in place, are the old rules still
Yes,
in place? So that it hasn't come tumbling down
not yet.
until after there's a decision as to whatever the.
And it's possible that some of these agencies don't go through good cause, that they go through the normal rulemaking and you start seeing repeal that way. But that would take time. And so this is kind of both a bridge and a safety net. It will allow you to get over any repeal, but it's also there just in case the repeals start happening.
Thank you.
Section 19 relates to waste tires. The General Assembly enacted a statute that gives enforcement of solid waste laws largely to municipalities, littering, burning of waste, issues like that municipalities have the ability to enforce as well as A&R. One of the things that is a chronic issue are waste tires. And one of the kind of issues or things that have arisen around waste tires is that people are basically selling themselves as waste tire collectors and charging for that fee, but they are not getting the required solid waste hauler permit. And so this requires or authorizes municipalities to basically enforce when a person is transporting waste tires without proper authority. Section 20 relates to that waste tires as well. It's just a stakeholder process on how to manage waste tires. There was in House Environment an effort to establish an extended producer responsibility program for tires, but that met it just didn't move forward. The committee decided not to move forward with it, but they still want to look at the issue of waste tires. Most states have some sort of program, whether it's a fee per tire or an extended producer responsibility program. Vermont has debated that issue for years. The issue with the fee per tire is that the tire dealers think and car dealers think it puts them at a competitive disadvantage with neighboring states, mainly New Hampshire. So it's never really moved. And so section 20 is really about a stakeholder process and what recommendation that stakeholder process would make to you for managing waste tires. And then section 21 has some appropriations issues. When the General Assembly enacted the emissions inspection requirement for motor vehicles, there was concern that certain low or moderate income people wouldn't be able to afford repairs for emissions failures. And you created this emissions repair program at A&R to provide assistance. And you based that eligibility on the LIHEAP income criteria. Well, it turns out nobody's been applying for the program because DMV had authority to waive the emissions violations, and they have been waiving them. But their waiver authority is expiring, and A&R expects the need for this program to increase. And so they want to make the eligibility determinations administratively easier. They're moving away from the LIHEAP standards and are instead putting in the statute the specific monetary thresholds for eligibility. So
Those are plans for something. See about this. Okay, this is interesting. Just
don't know what.
you don't know. We've been having discussions about that program.
Okay.
So it's just interesting that this is cropping up at the moment. Wayne?
I don't see the number. I read that there's dollar values in the bill. My question was, whose budget does that come out of? I assume that they're paying that to the.
It's in A&R's budget. It's part of their annual
They have
budget.
carry forward of about 500,000.
Closer to 600,000.
600,000.
General fund as well as 295 total. Yeah.
895,000 carry forward from a program that we started.
Found some money, right?
Yeah,
Well, that's right.
we had other plans for that. Well, this is going to be further discussion, so it's very helpful to understand. So DMV has been waiving.
It is waiving the
Emissions.
violations,
Yeah.
and that waiver authority is expiring.
Extend waiver. Mike, go ahead.
Again, this is maybe a.
I know,
separate
we're
conversation.
brainstorming right now. We're not, yeah.
But I think that it's a little, I mean, there are reasons that this program has not launched, and I think this is a big piece.
Right.
There are other factors as well. Apparently inspections are incredibly down from pre-pandemic times. There's simply a lot less folks even getting inspections. That's a separate issue that maybe doesn't even, but I think it's still, there are still questions about how much need there is for this program, which essentially, despite starting in 2021, really hasn't started. I think there's been three Vermonters
who've taken
since 2021 when this program was committed.
The program started.
The program started in 2021.
Right. It just hasn't, the take-up rate hasn't been, but it's.
And there's been a combination of factors. And again, this.
Advertised?
Pardon?
Has it been well advertised?
It has been advertised, but I don't know how well advertised.
There's only two places in the state that can even do the work under the program.
Oh.
So,
And 3
people
have done it in 5 years.
so all the inspection stations can't do it. So I will just say that I have been of the thinking that this is one of those programs that's at a point where it's worth considering, is this still priority?
Right. Given the other priorities that we
Given
have
the other
and the
priorities.
issues that we have about other critical things that are affecting people's safety. It's not for you, it's just us having this
I was
conversation.
just gonna say House Environment and House Transportation had similar conversations. But because of the expiration of the waiver authority, they're letting it continue.
And I think Mike's had conversations with transportation already. And yeah, anyway, that will be our problem, but it's helpful to hear. Go ahead, Wayne.
This is a federal waiver?
No,
State.
state inspection. But it's related to the state's, what's called the State Implementation Plan under the Federal Clean Air Act. Because mobile sources are a significant part of the pollution in Vermont, and Vermont is what's called out of attainment. There has to be this plan to address those sources. The inspection and the emissions testing is part of that state implementation plan. So if you were to waive inspection, like a lot of people have been discussing, you might have to revisit that in the state implementation plan.
And the plan is not tied back to feds in any way, it's just the state's plan, right?
Right, it's, the feds approve it, but it's for state implementation.
So if you modify it, it has to go back to the feds for reapproval.
If you change your SIP, you have to get it reapproved.
Okay, more to come on that from our state.
Okay, well, that's the bill.
Oh, that was it?
Yeah.
You saved the best for last. So there's no new money,
No new money.
but it's just because of healthy homes that we're getting.
And as Ted will tell you,
Oh, yes,
potential permit fee loss by pushing out
that's
those
right.
deadlines.
Yes, thank
And
you.
then the eligibility for emissions repair.
Okay, so if you don't mind just staying there and let's get Ted on the screen. Ted, if you're available. Hello.
Hello. Can you all hear me?
Yes, and we have your
Great.
fiscal note.
Great.
You're
Would you like
welcome
me to?
You can put it up on the screen. That would be fine. Thank you.
Okay. I will do so. Trying to figure out, is this large enough for everyone?
You can make it
Should.
bigger.
Let's see if I can figure out how to do that. It's a nice, seamless, like stretch apart on when I'm on my laptop. This is new. Okay. Let's actually, I will just do it this way. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so as Mike mentioned, there are the extensions of setting up new permitting processes, and these would extend collection of fee revenue for permitting of development in mapped river corridors. That would change fee revenue realization from starting in fiscal year 29 to fiscal year 2030. Similarly, the discharge permit for CAFOs would extend to September 1, 2027. So that is fiscal year 28. I will note that this last sentence here probably needs to be adjusted because, as Mike mentioned, that there are fee amounts, but you just wouldn't realize that fee revenue until later. And then finally, y'all had a pretty, I would say, covered all the bases on this emergency emission repair assistance program. Very kind of really dotting our I's and crossing our T's if we are making eligibility for the program administratively easier. Maybe some folks are, they qualify at 185% of federal poverty, but, before they weren't able to get their LIHEAP documentation in. So you could be making the program easier for folks to access even beyond ending of waivers. So there could be more vouchers given out through the program. But yes, as folks have mentioned, right, there have been 3 that have been given out thus far since 2021. So it's not a huge fiscal impact. So yeah, that's what I have for you all in the fiscal note.
Okay, so it's mostly about lost revenue at this point, potentially lost revenue, but we don't even know what that is because we don't know what the fees are.
We don't know what the fees are, or we don't know which farms would require the discharge permits.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you know if DEC is going to determine the fees, correct?
For CAFO, they've already been set. For river corridor, they have to come to you
Okay,
to get those fees.
but DEC is doing all the fee setting in here?
I mean, technically, the General Assembly will set the fees.
Right, they recommend
But
it.
they're going to recommend them, yes.
It's not ag, it's DEC. And do we know if they've started work on any of these fees? Just even, do we have any sense of?
They have started work on the rules that are required in order to implement these permits.
It'll be a little while.
It's not gonna be a massive amount of money though, I can't imagine, because if you had 100 farms at $2,500 a piece.
Yeah,
Right, well, then there's also the river corridor development and how that's gonna roll out. That will probably be,
and development in river corridors we aren't supposed to be doing that, are we? I'm making you sigh a lot, I'm sorry.
so you can develop in flood hazard areas right now, but those require FEMA flood insurance.
Okay,
And your municipalities have to have adopted a bylaw that complies with FEMA's requirements for that. It is not easy to develop in a flood hazard area. So that's the cost of flood insurance, and those requirements generally keep people out of flood hazard. River corridors are broader than the flood hazard area, and therefore it could involve land that has been developed or is proposed for development. So you could see more permits there than you do in the flood hazard areas.
and would flood insurance be required for that also in river corridor, or is that too early to know?
Well, technically no, because so flood hazard areas those are regulated by the feds and FEMA, and they map inundation flooding, the slow rise of the water, like it rained in Minnesota and Arkansas, it's going to flood in 3 days. Like you can predict that. And Vermont does have inundation flooding, the lake a couple of years ago, that's inundation flooding. But most of the flooding that Vermont has been experiencing is called fluvial erosion hazard or fluvial erosion flooding. It's when you have these major but discrete events of large amounts of precipitation. And instead of slowly rising, it scours out the land that it runs over. And that's what river corridor mapping and river corridor development permitting is going to address, where you shouldn't be citing something where there's a high risk of that fluvial erosion, flooding. You know, and I'm sure you all live in towns or seen issues where that happens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, but this is gonna allow it in certain,
I mean, there's gonna be rules, and
Yeah.
just for example, if you're in that flood hazard area and you want to develop, you have to raise that structure by 2 feet. So that it is out of what they consider the kind of immediate threat
yeah,
from that inundation flooding. What the rules will require for river corridor, I don't know yet.
yeah, okay. I just, given our history of the last 3 years alone and what's happened and the fact that FEMA doesn't want to, you know, support us for things, I'm just having a hard, I'm not counting on a lot of fees for that. Let's put it that way. I just can't imagine that there's going to be a lot of developers who are going to choose to, or people who would want to buy in that area. Not that there won't be any, but I think that's going to be
It's
tricky.
really easy to build in floodplains
Yeah,
because there's not a lot of rock. There's
sure.
developable
Open ag
soil.
fields, sure.
Yeah.
It's a gamble.
Yeah, right. But you don't bail out. Go ahead.
Has Ways and Means Committee looked at these fees and the impact on fees?
The bill went through Ways and Means. They haven't really, there wasn't a lot of,
They just acknowledged there'd be a delay in the.
Do you happen to know the vote counts from Environment and from Ways and Means? And I'm sure I have a text somewhere that tells this to me, except you'll find it.
9274.
7492.
Yeah.
7-4 in Environment and 9-2 in, okay. And there's no money involved. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any more questions about this? Not seeing any. This is Trevor's. We're not going to vote today, but we've now had our walkthrough. Mike, thank you very much. Ed, thank you very much. Yeah, so if we have other questions or thoughts, we'll go through Trevor on that. I think we'll be discussing the issue further. There's a compromise we can come to. And that. Okay, we have the parole board at 2, so shall we, why don't we break until 2 o'clock? 12:05, thank you.